Welcome, welcome. If you are new here, I am so glad you came to join us. I hope you find this to be a really good use of your time today. If you've been here before, I love seeing all the familiar faces back. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more videos like this and more videos on legal technology talk. So today we have a very special guest, Dr. Carrie, who is going to give us her wealth of wisdom. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Dr. Carey.
Great. I'm pulling up my screen now. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We're seeing your note screen though.
You should not see my notes screen. You should see my regular screen. Hang on. This is the fun part about tech that you guys know all about, which is
Absolutely.
that different tech shows up differently. And one of the most interesting
There we go.
things as a presenter is every time I present, I'm presenting in a different person's tech.
Oh, absolutely.
Yesterday I was in Teams, I was in Google Meet. Today I'm in Zoom. It's fantastic. So what we're talking about here today is, and it's a little bit of a cheeky title, making stress your superpower. But the point of giving it that cheeky title is this idea that we run into stress, and the first thing that happens is we sort of collapse, right? We sort of feel like, oh. And what we want to do is we want to actually be able to turn it into our superpower. So instead of stress itself then becoming additionally stressful, we want to actually have it be something that you're like, yeah, I've got this. I know what to do. And unfortunately, we can't eliminate stress. And there's an interesting myth in the self-help movement right now that you can manifest a problem-free life if you just sort of think your way into it. And it's total BS, right? Like it's just simply not true. It's not possible. And so instead, what we want to figure out is how to skillfully navigate life's inevitable ups and downs. And that superpower is the acceptance that stress is going to happen. And acceptance means that you are acknowledging that what's going on, right? It's not actually an approval of it. So acceptance is not like, oh, yay, I'm so glad this is happening. It's just like, here is what is so. And when you're in acceptance, then you stop railing against reality, particularly when it's not the reality that you want. And then the next step here is that we're going to do an assessment. And that assessment means that we're going to take a look at what's really going on, and we're going to take some steps to understand, to minimize, to work around, and to otherwise manage stress. And this is true even with the nasty mother-in-law, even with a boss who's being totally unreasonable, even with a financial crisis or other life stressor. So normally when we're managing stress, we aren't nearly as happy as this golden retriever, but we're gonna leave him up there, right? Because we're all juggling a lot. And one of the things that has just been super important for me to realize in my private practice is that everybody is dealing with something, and most people are dealing with multiple things. How many people are dealing with multiple things these days? Is anyone not? So, health issues, aging parents, difficulties at work, all of those things, your hot water heater going out, all of those things, it's normal to have something going on. And hang on one sec. Are you guys there? I can't hear anybody right now.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
I got
here.
you.
We're just muted.
Mhm.
Perfect. Just making sure. So, dealing with multiple things all the time, it's normal to have something going on. And again, I think this is another piece of the self-help movement that we've really kind of messed up on, which is that we have this idea that if something is going on, it means that something's wrong, that we've done something wrong, or that we're not doing something right. And what we want to do is we want to start leaning on what I call psychological flexibility. And psychological flexibility has three parts: be present, open up, and then we're going to do what works. So the first step, be present. We want to get into the present moment and settle down our bodies, because most of the time stress looks a lot like insisting on a reality that we want versus dealing with the reality that we have right in front of us. And there's a paradoxical effect of trying to control our thoughts and our emotions. And what we focus on tends to increase in both scope and intensity. So this is a piece of where the self-help movement actually has said something correct, right? Like your thoughts become things. Your thoughts don't become a diamond necklace. But what your thoughts do become is more details about what you're paying attention to, as well as more intensity of emotion, especially in your body. And you can't just suppress stress because it spills out into our bodies. Anybody else get tense in their necks? Anybody else feel tense in their hands? They grind their teeth, right? Like, yeah, this happens. And so resisting, stuffing, and ignoring stress actually increases our negative emotions and decreases our positive emotions, and it takes a toll on our bodies and our minds. So I loved this. I loved this picture. This is why the dog is happier, right? The dog's hanging out with his dad, and he's just thinking about hanging out with his dad. His dad is hanging out, not actually thinking about his connection with his dog. His dad's hanging out, thinking about money and thinking about what's going wrong with his car and thinking about an upcoming trip and thinking about something he needs to do in his house. So, being present is taking our thoughts away from all of those distractions and coming back into this present moment and paying attention to what's really happening right now. And we want to engage in the here and now because that's actually what's going to give us the most information. And in particular, what we want to do is we want to get more conscious of what is unconsciously running in the background. And so we want to actually deliberately choose more often what we're focusing on. And it's interesting because there's some cool research that shows that emotions only tend to last about 90 seconds if we don't start attaching them to stories. And if we label a difficult emotion, it actually tends to cut its impact by about 50%, giving us some space to figure out how we want to work with it. But the super cool thing is that when you're labeling a positive emotion, it tends to increase its impact by about 50%. So we want to get aware of what's going on right now. We want to label it and we want to understand it in the moment. So a fun exercise is the feel your toes exercise. So everybody, I can't tell if anybody's driving, but if no one is driving, let's take just a second and close our eyes. And the reason I'm encouraging you to close your eyes is it actually activates an old evolutionary biology trick, which is that if we are safe enough to shut down an entire sensory system, that translates as a luxury, and in our brains, it means that we are safe enough. So close your eyes for just a second. Obviously, if you're driving, don't. And take your left foot and press it into the floor. And just take a second and see if you can roll your toes. And victory here is just trying to roll your toes. It is not necessarily feeling all five toes. Most of the time we feel a left, we feel a pinky toe and a big toe, and then we feel kind of a clump in the middle. And sometimes we'll be stuck on which foot is my left one and which foot is my right one. But just breathe on purpose, press into that foot. Switch feet. Now, my guess is that 0% of us were actually paying any attention to our feet before I asked you to feel your toes. But notice how much more you're in the present moment as soon as you did that. So this is something that you can get and literally get your feet underneath you when you're in the middle of a meeting, when you're in the middle of a stressful conversation. Get yourself grounded, feel your toes, get into the present moment, then you re-engage. So in step 2, so step 1, get present, get aware. Step 2, we want to assess instead of judge. So we want to get real about what's really happening and get out of either wishful thinking, I wish this wasn't happening, or I wish this was happening, I wish this hadn't happened. All of that actually takes you out of the present moment and also tends to take you into difficult emotions like shame, guilt, anger. And so instead of judging this is good, this is bad, we want to focus on what is. And we want to label those emotions. Again, remember, labeling positive emotions increases their stickiness. Labeling negative emotions makes them more smaller, easier to deal with. And then we want to take a look at those pesky thoughts and look at the factual details of what's actually going on. So how do you feel? What stories are you telling yourself about it? Is there an actual risk here? Because lots of times our bodies will respond like there's actual risk. And really, it's just something uncomfortable or something uncertain. So, and then you can take a look. Again, this is this assessment. What's working well? What's not working so well? So 3 years ago, my husband and I were on our honeymoon, and victory for late in life love for anybody else who's in that same category. Um, we're on our honeymoon, and one of his high school buddies happened to live in Hawaii and said, if you come to Hawaii for your honeymoon, I'll give you a wedding present, which is that I'll take you out on our deep sea fishing boat. Cool. We ended up going to Hawaii on our honeymoon. We ended up getting to go out on his boat. We had a blast. It was a great day. And we didn't catch any fish, but we had a great day. And we come back and we're looking, and where's our car? And turns out that there had been a parking war that we, of course, as tourists on our honeymoon, were totally unaware of. And in the parking war, there had been a sign posted on 2 spots, one of which we had parked in, that said that if you parked there, that your car would get towed. But there was someone else in the community that decided that this was totally unreasonable. And so his response was to take down the signs and to assume that that meant that then the parking guys wouldn't be able to do the towing. Well, unbeknownst to us, this was going on, and there was no sign when we parked, and our car got towed. This is not ideal, right? But step 1, whew, and we don't know yet about the parking war. All we know is that our car is gone. So is there an actual risk? Sure, we have no car. We're on vacation. We're kind of in the middle of somewhere that we don't know very well, but there isn't actually a real threat. It's uncomfortable, not threatening. So what do we do next? Figure out what's our next best move. So in this assessment phase, we want to expect fluctuations, not perfection. And we have to accept the variability of life, making room for all the things, especially the things that aren't what we want, especially the things that aren't going our way. So as we're standing at the end of the dock, looking at our missing car, it was a pretty big variability. We were planning on going out to a nice dinner, and instead we got to field, how do we find our car? But that acknowledgement of reality as it is, our car is gone, whether we're upset about it or we're somehow happy about it, we wouldn't be happy about it. Accepting the reality that we are in and then moving forward from there. And one of the most important things to think about is to increase that psychological flexibility, we have to do a couple of things. So the first is that we have to challenge those judgments. This is bad. I'll only be okay if this gets resolved a certain way. That judgment tends to put us into rigidity. That rigidity takes us out of flexible responses. And notice how automatic those judgments are. You like something, you don't like something. You want something to go your way, you want something not to go a different way. Those judgments tend to keep us stuck. They're really important to take a look at. We also need to challenge our rules. I'll only feel successful if this happens. I'll only do well if I win this case. I will only feel good if my boss says this to me. So those rules of engagement, make sure that you're playing by rules that actually make sense to you and that you actually have some agency over. And we want to undo those automatic responses. Things like, I have a craving, I have to indulge it, right? Someone said something I didn't like, I have to tell them it wasn't okay. Do you have to? Or if you're more flexibly responding, can you take a minute and then choose your response instead of doing something automatic? And then finally, we also want to eliminate the avoidant responses, like delaying action until you feel comfortable. Remember, comfortable comes at the end of an experience, not at the beginning. So let's take just a second and I'll have you guys put this in the chat. Let's do an assessment right now. So in any given moment, we are typically experiencing positive, negative, and neutral input. So take just a second and identify what's currently positive in your world, what's negative, what's neutral. Right now, positive for me, I'm being with you guys. I'm excited to be here this morning. We have company coming in this weekend, so I have a positive coming up quickly. Neutral, it's beautiful here in Denver today. It's a nice temperature right now in my office. Negative, I have a pile of work to catch up on later. So if you're comfortable, put it in the chat. Let's see who wants to share, positive, negative, or neutral. Anybody? Come on, somebody's got to have something.
And we can unmute anybody that wants to say something if you would like to.
Yeah, and you can just unmute too. Who's got a positive, a negative, or a neutral? John and Beth, are you guys willing to share? Positive.
I have a
Tigers.
positive. I'm looking forward to pickleball this weekend that I haven't played in 6 months. And that's sort of
That's
driving me
awesome.
through today.
Somebody's positive about tigers, which I want to know more. Positive, see grandkids. Neutral, that temperature thing really is an interesting thing, right? Negative, you're also behind. Sorry about that. Yeah, positive. Beth and I are working together later. It's nice and more work. I'm sensing a theme of work. But so it's interesting because when we're in the middle of a negative, right? Like when we step off the dock and we see that our car isn't there, woof, right? That negative gets so loud and it's hard to remember. Like, yeah, your car's gone, but you're standing in Hawaii, right? Like you're going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. So step 3. Step 1, be present. Step 2, assess instead of judge and open up to those possibilities. Step 3, identify what's your next best move. And remember, emotions give us information, but actions are the things that solve problems. We will often get so entangled in the emotion of things that we will delay our ability to get to actually solving the issue. So we want to take a look at options and actions instead of just getting buried in our emotions. We want to break down our next steps into smaller, more manageable chunks. We want to assess what's working and what isn't working as things unfold. And more than anything, you want to look at what the most skillful, helpful, and actionable next move would be based on the reality that you have. So for us in Hawaii at the dock, our friend ended up recognizing like, oh crap, I'm so sorry. There's this whole parking thing going on, and I think you guys got tied up in the middle of it. I'll drive you over to the impound lot. So he drove us over to the impound lot, and he turns at us before we start talking to the guy in charge of the impound lot. He turns to us and he says, remember, if you're decent to this guy, he'll probably be decent to you. He doesn't know about the parking conflict. He doesn't know that you didn't know about it. And so we needed to do what mattered in that moment, and we needed to focus on workability. And instead, again, of judging the thoughts and feelings as good or bad, we want to ask how workable they are, right? So being all hot-tempered at the impound lot was not going to help us. And the question to ask in that moment was, what can we do to move us in a direction that's going to get us a good outcome that suits my values and that engages me in the type of life I want to be living? Those systems are better than just willpower, and we want to take action as quickly as possible, and we want to choose our actions. So what we did in that moment was we essentially said to the impound guy, hey, turns out there's this big parking conflict. We didn't know about it. We made a mistake. Is there any way that we can work something out to get our car back today? And instead of paying a $700 impound fee, the guy took $50 and took him and his co-workers out for a beer and a pizza, and we got our car back. This was lovely. So when you're doing that assessment of what to do next, what is workable, one of the things we also want to do is to take a look at how did it turn out. So we want to monitor and we want to modify, and we want to do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And we want to get real about both our patterns and our habits and repair the negative, fix that, fix those negative patterns, and then we want to repeat the positives. And we don't want to succumb to either chaos or rigidity. So for everybody here who sounds like they all are feeling pretty overworked right now, slow down just a second before you dive into that work today and see what you can do to set up a system to be able to actually organize things and maybe even get proactive instead of constantly feeling reactive to stress. And as often as you can, combat rigidity with relaxation, curiosity, persistence, humor. All of those things are really good. And again, when we're in the opposite of curiosity and humor, we're very rigid. So anytime you notice your body's rigidity, that's where you want to settle your body first, organize a little bit second, choose and dive in third, and then assess and see how it goes. So, but what do we do about emergencies, right? Like the toe story obviously is a first world problem, but an emergency nonetheless in the moment. And so unexpected things tend to put us into that threat response mode and into some of that rigidity. But one of the things that's interesting is most things that we're dealing with aren't actually an emergency, and they aren't even necessarily unpredictable, right? I was helping a client earlier this week who was dealing with consistent troubles on his commute to work. And one of the things that we figured out was that he was in a difficult pattern almost every day, and he actually had some agency over it. He changed the commute to work by 17 minutes and had an entirely different experience. Similarly, I was consulting with a company, an engineering company, and again, there was a negative pattern that was happening a lot. And this particular person was stuck in complaining about the pattern and also was regularly surprised that she was in the same conflict with her coworker. And one of the things that we talked about was that actually it was predictable. She and this coworker are in this tussle all the time. And so for her to step back, reflect the pattern, both first to herself and then to the coworker, that then gave them some space to do something different. So sometimes what we're labeling as surprising or unexpected is actually very expected. It's the same stuff, different day. So identify those high crisis times, high crisis or high difficulty people, high difficulty seasons, and then have some systems and some backups for yourself. So the conclusion here today, psychological flexibility allows you to manage instead of stress about life's problems. And this acceptance of stress and implementing a present focused, well thought out strategy for forward movement, that's your key to success. So thoughts, questions, and also this is I thought this was a particularly fun slide to end on because this is actually a picture of the cove that was nearby where we stayed on our honeymoon. Hawaii for the win, man. Holy cow, that place is gorgeous. But good news, we got the car back. Stress decreased and we got to watch sunsets like this. Please feel free to scan the QR code to learn more about me and to join my newsletter. It is filled with stories and tips and tricks. It's not a salesy thing, and it only will land in your inbox once a month because we're all too busy for marketing all the time, and that's terrible. So it's not marketing, and it's also not very often. And then today, I think that Beth and John and I had decided that we would do a little bit of a lottery, and somebody today can get a copy of my book, and that I am happy to autograph and send off to you. So I don't know, John or Beth, have you figured out who the winner is?
No, I have the wheel here, so I'm going to stop recording right now.
Great.